Okay. Guess what? We are live. Bring us on in. Thank you so much. Welcome back, everybody. It is Truth Time here at the TruthWire. I am your host, Craig Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
I went old school, fam, and I've been going old school because I had to just share a memory on Facebook about meeting Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez 7 years ago when I hiked all out from the end of Long Island into Queens to go see her for a little bit at one of her campaign meetings. They were working out of a small place in Jackson Heights, Queens. I remember we were pushing her as a progressive warrior. She was going to say she was going to fight for Medicare for all and the working class. And I just reshared it and said, wow, how things have changed. And they have changed. But the more they change, fam, the more they stay the same. Except maybe that's not the news from you today about Russia, Ukraine, huh, fam? But before we get started, what's up, Saul? I think we should bring in our co-host for today. Would you like to introduce him?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. No, I'll do it. You don't have to. Like, who are you kidding? Like, see, I thought you were gonna say. I thought you were gonna bet $1 million. Like, no, Pasta, you're the energetic one. You do it, right?
No, I wasn't gonna say that, fam.
Well, I'm the good-looking, energetic one of the show. We know that, the funny one. You're the smart one. We've already established that when we started this thing about 8 years ago, 8.5 years ago plus. But he's been joining us for about 8 months now, something like that. We love him. You know him, kids. He's homeless. We're homeless. We're homeless together because we're not hanging out in a Democratic Party. We are the homeless left. And here's the guy who started the homeless left, Matt Weinglass.
Hey, guys. How's it going? Happy Monday.
He's laughing.
We're all positive this week, guys. Come on, let's be positive.
Well, you got some stuff going on over there at the homeless left. You got a little clip of Dr. David Martin going. I think we did a video on Dr. David Martin 4 years ago, I think it was. I'm not sure. 3.5, 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless of what people say about Dr. David Martin, like we were talking about, me and Matt, sometimes people like Dr. Malone and Dr. David Martin are criticized for having an ulterior motive, right? The information that they put out sometimes is very, very solid. And the information that Dr. David Martin put out 4 years ago, as far as talking about vaccines that already had a patent, was pretty solid because we Johnny'd it. Johnny took it and went to the patent registry, looked it up. So the information I think that he's put out there before in the past, regardless of his motives or what people think or the conspiracy theories, I think is solid. And right now, Matt has put out a video clip of him and what's going on. And Matt, why don't you sum it up and tell us right away? Because that's the second clip of yours in less than a month that is catching fire over at the homeless left. Talk about it real quick.
Well, going into it, we did know this was going to be controversial having Dr. David Martin on the show. We had to have this conversation because he had access to this very important document that seemed to be very familiar of Event 201. If you guys don't know that, or if you've heard that term before, just to remind people, refresh them, the 201 event was the simulation, well, because a simulation with air quotes of what COVID was going to be like. And everybody in that room kind of went through the motions of here's how we're going to package it. Here's how we're going to sell it. Here are the talking points from the media. Here's how we manufacture public consent. So this looks like the next Event 201. But more than that, they seem to be taking cues from the best of album of 9/11 as well. So you're getting the best of 9/11. That's the war on terror, and the best of COVID. The 2 weeks to slow the curve. We're all in this together. You combine those two, and you get this blueprint. It's called the National Blueprint for Biodefense, which they're calling the next Event 201, which is mapping out an event that's going to be happening on July 4th, 2025. Now, if you just look at it as a simulation and take it for that, then what's the problem? It's just a simulation. It's not real. Well, we've seen time and time again. 9/11, what was that? That was the project of a new American century, the previous August, mapping out everything that was leading up to 9/11, literally having the Twin Towers on the cover of the magazine with the crosshairs right on the building. So we've seen this playbook before. This is why we had to have the conversation with Dr. David Martin, share this thing out. We uploaded the interview. It's gotten massive engagement on our Rumble channel. Then we put a clip up of a 5 minutes kind of breaking down this thing. And this is the most important part, sharing the PDF where people can download this thing and have access to it. It's about 173 pages, and it spells out the whole thing, and you can do what you want with it. Again, we know that there's controversy attached, we can go down rabbit holes about who did what when and you know who's to be trusted and who's not. But make no mistake, this thing exists. It's real. Make what you can of it or what you want with it. But we're just trying to share it out, have conversations. Like Craig said, it's about the conversations. And we go as honest as we can into these things. And we want to keep learning as we go. So it's always a work in progress, but we come at it from a non-tribal point of view. So I recommend everybody to go to my Twitter. You guys can find it right at the early post there. It's the PDF of this. It's called the National Blueprint for Biodefense, mapping out this simulation for July 4th, 2025.
Which, by the way, you know, I think it's very important to look at some of this stuff because the protocols are in place for a lot of bad stuff to happen, whether it's natural occurrence, lab leak gone wild, a planted bioweapon. The means are there necessary for them to continue to study, to continue to do these experiments, which they should be shut down. You know, the Patriot Act allows for a section to have bioweapons testing. If we do bioweapons testing, then the Chinese have to do it, then the Russians have to do it. They have to match what we're doing. So once again, we are leading, and those protocols are in place. We've talked about the pandemic treaty as well. So it's good to look at these documents to get ahead of that, to say, no, we shouldn't be doing this anymore. In fact, fam, my first question with your favorite libertarian, Chase Oliver, who ran as the libertarian candidate. That's a lie. Fam is not a libertarian, nor does she condone them or endorse them. But the first question I did ask him is, will he put a ban on gain of function? Because I was going at one of the weakest points, I think, for libertarians, where they want the free market to dictate everything. Therefore, they want no government oversight. No, we need to have government oversight. The one thing that Donald Trump and RFK should have been pushing for, guns a-blazing, is to put a ban on a gain of function research, but we don't have that going. So we still have all this crazy stuff in place. So I think a documentation from Dr. David Martin is very important to look at least from that mindset. And that's something we did a lot of work for COVID. We had a lot of videos. We did them all on Rockfin. We couldn't talk about them on YouTube. We weren't the scary, dangerous, safe, dangerous people. In other words, there were people out there talking about some stuff that were considered dangerous but safe because the narrative management had already taken place. They weren't ahead of the curve. I think you got ahead of the curve with that interview with Dr. Martin. So congrats to you. Let's get rolling, though, because we have a lot of things to talk about. And I just want to send some shout outs to Gabrielle Freedom out there as one of the special listeners today. And also Lori Bear Beatty's out there hanging out and watching. Hey, Bear, if you got a horse for the Belmont Stakes, call me. We'll talk. It's this Sabado, and I want to pick a nice horse. Somebody who else likes horses, equestrians fam, I heard, is Vladimir Putin. Not true, but it wouldn't surprise me. He's more of a hockey fan. Let's go Panthers. Let's go Oilers. A great series coming up in the finals. But I just want to point out that, you know, you had brought a video on Monday, and I thought it was great because we had it out there before most people had it out there, fam. And that was the chancellor, or the new chancellor of Germany, talking about now we are giving Ukraine long-range missiles. They didn't have that before. Now they got it completely lifted off any type of governor holding them back. They can use these long-range missiles. They could defend Ukraine by bombing Russia from where they're at. We know for a long time that this stuff has been going on for quite some time. It's been going on with Israel too as well. Israel can't maneuver and operate all the machinery without us, especially the new bombs we give them. Same goes for Ukraine. So Brian Berlichik had this tweet up there I grabbed the other day, and it's important to look at it because it kind of sets a tone. It sets a precedence, if you want to bring this up here. While waiting for confirmed details of drone strikes on Russia's strategic bomber fleet and terrorist attacks on civilian passenger trains, remember, U.S. media, and this comes from the New York Times, already admitted that the U.S. runs Ukrainian intel, which you need if you want to send drones into Russia. So if Ukraine sends drones into Russia, that means the West and the United States, MI6, CIA, Mossad sends drones into Russia. It's not Ukraine doing it by itself, and that's important to point out. With U.S. CIA bases established all across Ukrainian training Ukrainians to carry out ops in Russia starting 10 years ago, long before Russia launched its 2022 operation. This includes all 4 years of Trump's first term in office. It's not my war, fam. I didn't do it. It was Biden's war, Putin's war, and Zelensky's war. If I was president, it would have never happened, and now it's happened, and Putin has gone crazy. This wasn't Ukrainian undermining U.S. peace talks. This was the U.S. using peace talks to further undermine Russia, something we've talked about ad nauseum on the show. Minsk 1 and Minsk 2. Angela Merkel already admitted that they were using these pauses, these ceasefires, to gain more weaponries, to reset. This is why FAM has pointed out on the battlefield, the Russian generals or the whatever they are in charge, whatever rank, they don't want to stop. They don't want to let Ukraine get a timeout so they can reload and do what they got them to do. They got them on the ropes. They're pushing them back. The attacks would not have been possible without extensive U.S. assistance and approval, if not direct involving in planning. I think it was I think it might have been Scott Ritter, fam, who said it a couple years ago, that what they do is that they set all this stuff up. They have U.S. Intelligence in there and CIA. They do all this stuff, and they tell the Ukrainian, hit this button. So technically, the Ukrainian hits the button, but the action to set it up comes from our intelligence. That means we are complacent. Click on the left one, the spy war, how the CIA secretly helps the Ukraine fight Vladimir Putin. And I just want to put this up. It says a Ukrainian army soldier in the forest near Russian lines this month. A CIA-supported network of spy bases has been constructed in the past 8 years that include 12 secret locations along the Russian border. So they're there deep in that territory, helping them out. The spy war, how the CIA secretly helps Ukraine fight Putin. For more than a decade, the United States has nurtured a secret intelligence partnership with Ukraine, not the Ukraine, that is now critical for both countries in countering Russia. Go to the next one and just look in the box. I'm going to read real quick. The CIA and other American intelligence agencies provide intelligence for targeted missile strikes, track Russian troop movements, and help support spy networks. And it took root a decade ago into one of Washington's most important intelligence partners against the Kremlin today, which I forgot what they're called, fam. The actual CIA for Ukraine, the SUB or USB, what's it called?
SBU.
SBU. So here we have the CIA in there helping them out, targeting spots in Russia. So this is why it says to me, fam, that the Russians know this. This is why they said one of the conditions for ending this war without getting an unconditional ceasefire was the fact is they wanted to talk about the roots of how the war started, fam. Do you believe that Vladimir Putin is going to get Donald Trump to sit down at a desk and talk about why the war started and get him to admit that and acknowledge that moving forward? Yes or no, fam?
No, I mean, I don't. I think Trump gives lip service to where he needs to. So what's happening is there is, I think, an internal battle between what the EU wants and what the United States is looking at, especially those that are in favor of Trump ending the war for the purpose of just trying to kind of move away from this failure. And I don't see Donald Trump at all really even understanding the depth of where he's at, because this obviously didn't start a couple of years ago. This obviously started more than a decade ago. And what we're seeing now is everything that wasn't dealt with come into play. And we're going to talk about the negotiations in a few minutes. But what it seems to be happening is something far more. I think there does seem to be, very much like there is in Russia, a disjointed attitude towards how to approach Russia based on how things are unfolding. And I don't think everybody in the US is in agreement, and I don't think everybody in the EU is in agreement. So I think that's why we're seeing so much back and forth, and Trump is saying one thing to the US audience and another to Putin. Yeah. And that's why it's so hard for people to figure out, wait a minute, why is this being contradicted? What's going on? Because in the end, if you're trying to please everybody or play like all sides, you end up pleasing nobody. So I think that's the danger for Trump.
Okay. Matt, I don't care if Donald Trump is ignorant anymore. I don't care if he's ignorant. I don't know. He shouldn't be president if he's ignorant, if he doesn't know what's going on. I do believe he knows, and he's just lying to the people. But what are your thoughts right now? How do you see this relationship at? Where do you see it's at right now? Where do you see it going present day today before we get into the rest of this story? Because that will also set a tone on what I think a lot of people are feeling out there, because I think there's a lot of people who think that there's something can still come of this. I'm kind of in the Mark Sloboda camp, and I think this is going to be a forever war for a while, and we're never going to have those relations get back. That's just my personal opinion. I think they're pushing Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation to take all of Kiev. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that being caught in the middle is the best assessment you can give the guy. And I'm not trying to do play the empathy card. Poor Trump. He's stuck in the middle of something that he doesn't know what to do. No, he has all the information. It's all in front of him. And I think Fiorella is right about the trying to please everyone. So he figures he'd take a cue from Joe Biden and do the play dumb card. You guys remember the who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline and this whole, I don't know, maybe Ukraine did. It was, Russia did it to themselves and then Ukraine did, with no accountability that, again, we control the intelligence. We're part of every move that Zelensky makes. He's not doing anything on his own. We're controlling everything. So when Trump takes that cue and pretends he has no idea what's going on, using language like Putin has gone crazy, it's totally familiar of how they package this thing from day one, from what they called day one. We knew it wasn't day one, but the narrative to the public when Joe Biden was in charge, I'll do that in air quotes, but like the February 2022 story, right? That Putin woke up one day and decided he wanted to take over Europe and eventually the entire planet, the next Hitler, that whole thing. Yeah. Trump is doubling down on that. He's trying to please the liberal side of this, which is, it's so bizarre because he's not going to, I think like Fiorella is indicating here, he's not going to get their approval. They're not going to be like, oh, it's about time, Trump, that you followed the lead of the Democrats and doing the right thing and bringing democracy to Ukraine. They're not going to acknowledge that. So he looks like a complete buffoon playing dumb, which I think he's doing. He's playing dumb and saying, I always said that Putin wanted to take over Europe and I was right. And he just went crazy and he's doing the thing. And then he's trying to deflect and say, and it's not my problem. So he's trying to please everyone. He is playing dumb. He has all the information, but the reality is, even with all that information in front of him, he is not up to the job. I don't know if anybody would be in his position, not to give him any free pass. I'm just saying, I don't know who could actually do this job when there's higher powers at work here, and he really doesn't have a say in it. So playing dumb is the only thing he can do.
Fam, do you want to kind of continue? You want me to get into the rest of this section and peel
No, go ahead.
All right, let's peel into it, because here's the thing. Was he playing dumb on this one? The other day, we had a report come out, and this is by, where is this? Get out of my way there. This is by, who's this by? This is by NDTV World. Okay. Putin's helicopter was at the epicenter of Ukraine's drone strike. Report. The Russian officers said a drone was detected approaching the flight paths of Putin's helicopter and was immediately neutralized by the Russia Air Defense Forces. This is from Moscow. Putin was in Kursk earlier this week, by the way, his first visit to the region since March. Moscow. Russian President Vladimir Putin was allegedly the target of an assassination attempt by Ukraine. A Russian military officer claimed Putin's helicopter was in the epicenter of a Ukrainian drone strike in the Kursk region attack on May 20th. Russia's air defense systems intercepted the drone and destroyed it before it could reach the president's flight path, said Russia's air defense unit commander Yuri Dashkin, according to the Russian news agency RBC. The commander told the news agency that from May 20th to May 22nd, Russia came under a massive drone attack from Ukraine, with the country's air defense destroying as many as 1,170 drones. That's a lot of drone at 10 million a drone, whatever it is. He said that during Putin's visit to Kursk region on May 20th, there was an unprecedented attack airstrike from Ukraine as air defense shot down 46 drones. I would like to point out that the intensity of the attack significantly increased during the flight of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief's aircraft over the territory of the Kursk region. Therefore, we were simultaneously engaged in air battle and ensured the safety of the president's helicopter in airspace, Dashkin said. The Russian officer claimed that Putin's helicopter was effectively at the epicenter of the response to the massive drone attack. He said that the drone was detected approaching the flight path of Putin's helicopter and was immediately neutralized by Russia's air defense forces. Putin was in Kursk earlier this week, his first visit to the region since March. No injuries or damage were reported in the incident, and the Russian president's convoy continued without interruption. However, the incident raised concerns about the capabilities of the Ukrainian drone, with the Russian authorities probing whether the strike was an attempted assassination or a broader psychological operation by Kiev. This is huge. It's getting no friggin' airtime whatsoever, right? At all in the United States media, at all. Because I start to think there's one of two things that could have happened here. And it's really bad. It's either bad or real bad. Number one is that Donald Trump knew. They told, hey, man, you know that Ukraine can't use their drones without us. We got some intel. He's going to the Kursk region. We're going to fly a massive amount of drones, and we're going to take them down. And Donald said, okay, good luck like you got Soleimani. Because, you know, he acted like he knew about Soleimani. Or if he wasn't told, then that further proves, even to the point of an assassination of another president, an attempt, that the CIA is doing whatever they're doing, running amok and getting away with it. By the way, here it is. The one very clip. It's hard to find a clip right now. They've erased a lot of stuff out there of Donald Trump getting asked on the tarmac with his Make America Great Again hat, the white version, which you can get on his site, still made in China for $19.99, talking about he didn't hear about this. So this is like either bad or that's real bad. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jayme. Play the video.
I haven't heard that, but maybe that would be a reason. I don't know, but I have not heard that.
Attack from Ukraine. So do you have any?
I haven't heard that, but maybe that would be a reason. I don't know, but I have not heard that.
Now, you Jayme, cue up the one video right after that to play that, because I still want to kind of point out that even though he didn't hear that, he's still going with the same rhetoric. Remember, we showed the Truth Social. Putin has gone crazy. He's making it seem one-sided. So he is taking an anti-Putin side as he's being asked that question. Play this next video real quickly, Jayme. This is him going on about Putin again, fam. Make sure the volume's all the way up before you start it. And
with what Putin's doing, he's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay? We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all.
President, what do you want to do about that?
I'm surprised. I'm very surprised. We'll see what we're going to do. What am I going to tell you? You're the fake news, aren't you? You're totally fake. All right, any other questions? I don't like what Putin is doing, not even a little bit. He's killing people. And something happened to this guy, and I don't like it. I'm not happy with.
He was further asked if he was thinking about putting extra sanctions on them. He agreed. He said yes. I don't know. This is a very scary situation. He hasn't addressed it yet. I don't know. I haven't seen anything about him further addressing the fact that an assassination attempt on his life. But, I mean, how does Russia think about this? I mean, you can see that was coming from Moscow, man. This is, fam, this isn't me saying, oh, my God, you know, it's not coincidence or whatever. Yeah, it could be coincidence. There's a massive drone attack, but it doesn't seem that way. And this is something serious. How does Putin take this, fam? An attempt on his life. Do you think he holds America responsible or not?
They didn't at all talk about this, really. It was actually reported in TASS. It was reported, I think, let me see where it's at. Putin's helicopter on the 25th of May was caught at the epicenter of Ukraine's drone attack during his visit to Kursk. But that's it. They just said it was caught in there. And before anything happened, it was like nonchalant. They always take down these drones. They didn't make a very big deal of this out of this whole thing. It was actually, because we talked about this before, Pasta, it was actually made a bigger deal by people in the US than it was by Russia. So I just want to point that out.
This would be on top censored news of the week. It was like hardly even talked about here. I caught it because I watched Andrew Napolitano, but nobody in the mainstream even mentioned it.
It doesn't seem like it was of particular importance for the Kremlin, though, from their end. So I don't know. I honestly I think obviously the United States intelligence apparatus is very aware of Ukraine's moves. They were aware, I think, of the terrorist attacks that happened on the train. They were aware of a lot of the drone strikes that are happening, even if they say they aren't. But when it comes to what Donald Trump said there, he did seem like genuinely like he might have not even known. And I'm starting to believe, like everybody else, I think, to a degree, that there is just more of an exposure of Trump's lack of control. And we know that American presidents don't run the show, but I think it's becoming more clear to people just how much that is. Because I think people still are under the impression that, if you are somebody, you could potentially do something, that you could potentially like oppose the establishment, and maybe you could, but you wouldn't really live long enough to do something. And I think that's it's becoming more understood in the US, but when it comes to Russia, I still don't think that's 100% understood. I think they still see that there's a difference in potential negotiations, and they're very positive about this administration on the political level, not on the military level, or even the population level of patriots that supported the SMO. I wouldn't say that's true of them, but I would say on the government level, on the diplomatic level, they're trying everything they can, really.
Well, they always play the part. They do it right. They always follow international law. Matt, if this were an American president, forget about it. I think we'd have had two aircraft carriers in the Red Sea, and then way out in the Pacific near Sarah Palin, and there's Putin there, and we got to watch him. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know necessarily. I think that has changed with us as well since Trump's assassination attempts as an ex-president at the time. It seems like we kind of have a very short-term memory on that. So I don't know if that even would hold up for us. But yeah, this is one of these things that is going to continue to be, silenced. It's definitely a top censored news, but it's not this one incident. This is going to continue. So we're looking at this, right? There's been another drone strike from Ukraine, and the White House is, I'm going to say, playing dumb again and saying we don't even know this is happening. Apparently, there's been 40 Russian warplanes taken down. This was just yesterday. So they're going to continue to do these strikes, and the White House is going to separate itself, and they're not going to get too much pushback on it because the how would we say, the establishment media is still trying to run this Putin puppet narrative about Trump. So they're believing this garbage, or at least wanting the public to believe that Trump is actually as dumb as he's playing, and says, I have no idea about this. So this is, they're setting this back and forth. Meanwhile, obviously, Putin is responding to these strikes and these attempts, and he's moving further into the territory where this is just going to keep amping up. I don't know where the end game is on this, but I do know that the White House is certainly going to continue to play the dumb card on this, and this is just going to keep going further and further. But I don't know, this report of yesterday, this is totally superseding the assassination attempt. No one's even going to mention the assassination attempt anymore. Now we're talking about, 40 Russian warplanes got destroyed by Zelensky, and Trump has no idea it even happened. That's what's being presented right now on establishment media.
Fam, you had some stuff I see you put in there that you want to talk about.
Yeah, I was going to talk about this later, but since you're talking about the attacks, I'll just mention them
now, by the way.
Right? Okay. Well, I'll mention it real quick Jayme, if you want to put up the first link. I'm just going to mention these real quick in case, because we haven't gone since the weekend, and in the last few days, Ukraine did attack several parts of Russia, including civilian areas, and they attacked Belgorod, the Belgorod region, with over 100 drones, killing one civilian. And again, we're talking about the Belgorod region is in between, it's a region where there's a lot of tension right now, and they have been endlessly attacking the Belgorod region. And the thing is, whenever you see in Western media about Putin attacking Ukraine, you don't see what happened before. And so a lot of people are kind of upset that Russia went forward with these negotiations that we're going to talk about, because Ukraine literally just unleashed a massive set of attacks. So that's one of them. They also went on to attack Bryansk, and a bridge collapsed there because of this. And so it said that the number of those that were injured in this accident or attack is up to 104 people. And so again, these are civilian areas. We're not talking about military strategic areas. We're talking about straight up civilian areas. Also hospitals, I believe they've recently attacked. They attacked the medical facilities, and the next one in Kursk. And Kursk has obviously a very symbolic meaning. They just recuperated. The Russians did Kursk. It's also, of course, a World War II a victory. And so there was a drone strike overnight, and this happened just all in the matter of the last couple days. And so this is, again, kind of like Israel damaging hospitals and buildings. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because people thought that this was done, that Russia wasn't going to go through with the talks in Istanbul. And I've been telling people, like, of course they're going to go through with it. They are doing everything they can to show the world we're ready for a resolution. And they offered a 2-day ceasefire to see if Ukraine can even do that. They're not going to offer a 30-day ceasefire for Ukraine to just, rehabilitate itself, in essence, right? Mm-hmm. And so the other thing that's been happening that people have been talking about, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's the operation by Ukraine that everybody says shows just how Ukraine can still win this war. Mm-hmm. And it's been the strikes on Russian airfields. It's been the strikes that have been these drone attacks that you've talked about. So when the Putin situation happened on the 25th, it's just been ongoing since then. We're talking about just endless and endless drones. And obviously they did instill some sort of damage on Russia. I don't think that's undeniable or deniable at this point. But particularly we're talking about the Irkutsk region. And the operation is called Operation Spiderweb. And the way it's being reported is now, Ukraine has an opportunity. So that's what the EU and everybody else are going in with. But the reality is Russia really completely cut it off. I mean, they were able to pretty much subdue this very, very quickly. There were no casualties, minimal damage. And that is what happened literally going forward into these talks, which is why people are wondering, are these for real? Is Russia actually like taking them on their word? What's going on? Are they testing them? And I do believe it is a form of a test. I do believe, like, if you say, okay, you just did all this, you conducted terrorist attacks on civilians, you killed children, you killed babushkas. Now we're going to come in and we're going to still go to this, and we're going to offer you a 2-day ceasefire, which Ukraine, I don't think will take. I mean, I would be very surprised that if they'll take that.
So that's where we're at right now. Even though they did all this damage, we're at the 2-day ceasefire period. Can we talk? Maybe should we transition into what happened with the talks, and why there's still some confidence, and maybe get your opinion about what's going on? Because everything I see every day when it comes to Trump, when it comes to the White House, when it comes to this whole situation, when I hear Rubio, when I still see Lindsey Graham going with Senator Blumenthal. What's Blumenthal's first name? I forgot. But the senator, and they're going to Kiev to meet with Zelensky now. I mean, I made a tweet saying, "How can you take the Trump administration serious? Donald Trump should be telling Lindsey Graham and Blumenthal, don't you go near Don't you go near Kiev right now while we're having these talks over there. I mean, you're talking about the biggest instigators now left in our government when it comes to Ukraine. I don't have any faith, fam, but maybe you want to kind of piggyback in there and say what's going on and what we can still hopefully expect.
Yeah, so I want to hear y'all's thoughts on this, because as we've talked about before, huh?
Well, you just heard mine.
No, but I mean, after you hear what the specifics have been, because there are several things that have been released now. Ukraine is proposing talks on between June 20th and 30th, and Russia handed in this memorandum to Ukraine that Ukraine is going to basically look at and say, okay, let's see if we agree with this. And it's kind of interesting because a lot of things were said about this whole thing. Jayme, if you want to pull up that thread. So like I said, Russia proposed a 2 to 3 day ceasefire on specific areas to allow the retrieval of the dead. They're going to do a whole exchange of the dead, including everybody, and dependent on the age, there's different conditions. And they highlighted that the reason why there's a lot of Ukrainian casualties is because they've been advancing on the battlefield. But what's really important here is that they're going to do a prisoner exchange, that it's the largest prisoner exchange that they have done since World War II. So again, we're seeing the reemergence of what happened even all the way back then, because remember, parts of Ukraine also fought for the other side. You had many, of course, fight with the Soviet Union for the Red Army, but you had others not do that. And that we're still having that neo-Nazi scenario come into play. And so I talked about the number of children that are going to be returned to their parents that were separated. So they talked about that. But one of the bigger things that I think out of this whole thing that's interesting is Turkey's role in this. Turkey is right now simultaneously negotiating different agendas within Syria with the United States, and also has made itself another neutral party in this conflict. And Erdogan said that everything went really well. He actually called it, he was happy that this happened, and he said this went really well. And then there's going to be another round in Istanbul. That's where it's going to take place. And so Russia wants to have these sanctions lifted, and they released this memorandum, this full text, into the Russian media of TASS. And among that, this is what they asked. They asked one of two things. As we have said before, they want Crimea. They want recognition of Crimea, Donbass, Novorossiya, or New Russia as part of the Russian Federation. They want Zaporozhye. They want the Donetsk People's Republic, the Lugansk People's Republic. They want Kherson. And this has to be within 30 days of a ceasefire. The Ukrainian armed forces must be completely withdrawn from these regions. Ukraine needs to remain neutral, and they can't have alliances or foreign military in their territory. And so there's also the halt of the Western weapons. They're asking for they're asking for everything, basically. I mean, they're asking for what they're entitled to, from my perspective, because of where they're at the war, right? For Ukraine to be neutral, that should be that should be a given. And then, like I said, the sanctions, and this is where I think Zelensky will lose his shit, because they want a presidential and parliamentary elections to be held within 100 days after the lifting of martial law. This is an area where it's either going to go one of two ways. I mean, Zelensky's obviously going to be pissed off, but if Zelensky is the puppet we know he is, he's not going to have a say. He's going to be deposed of. And we've been talking about Zelensky's reign coming to an end, right? We've been talking about how the US disposes out of all these people. And I think that's what we're seeing here, because that is huge. And yeah, they're other than that, it's just the political exchanges and all of that. But I just want to ask your thoughts on a couple things. One, are these terms from Russia asking too much? And two, is there any chance that Ukraine and obviously the EU, who clearly just think that Russia's just going to take over, are going to accept any of these terms? And does it even matter if they do at this point?
You want to go first, Matt?
Yeah. I think there might be a chance that because of I'm glad we're going through this timeline accurately. Some of the stuff we've been even just talking about leading up to these talks, this is great that this is happening. This is between June 20th and 30th to even have this on the table. All this action and reaction and playing dumb and all this stuff we talked about leading up to this, and it's going to continue, I think, up until the 20th. This could all just be designed as optics to try and make the image of Zelensky look like he's not just a complete sucker that's going to roll over. If that is what the purpose of these, we almost got Putin on a drone strike. We just did another one. This is the greatest, operation we've ever seen conducted ever. And Trump's not even the one part of this. And if it's all about making Zelensky look like he has some sort of credibility, he might be willing to roll over on this just to get out. And then maybe history will tell a slightly different story of what reality is. Well, it will have to if he wants to save any face, that he put up a fight and this is for the betterment of the people. And then they can continue this saving of democracy, which, as you said, Fee, you said that the thing that might piss him off the most is the fact that they'd have to hold those elections. I think that's the thing that's going to help cement his legacy, as somebody who had to do what he had to do to get the job done. And now we can go back to democracy, and he's gonna have to bite the bullet on that if they take this deal. If they don't take this deal, all this is for nothing. But I think to answer your second part of that question, for Russia to put this in front of Ukraine, this is not a huge ask. Everything in there makes complete sense based on everything that's happened up till now. Obviously, there could have been a better deal for Ukraine if they had taken the one way back when, the one that Boris Johnson came in to sabotage. If you remember that one, obviously that would have been better for Ukraine. But this is where we are now. This is the best thing they're going to get. I mean, it would be great for everyone if they take this deal. I think there's a chance he might, but who knows? He might say no, and this entire thing it's been another waste of time, and this is just going to be an ongoing, endless war that goes on and on into new presidencies way after Trump, and just never stops. But this could go in the favor of ending this thing between June 20th and June 30th. Let's hope it does.
My idea is, when I look at it, I say to myself, well, what exactly on those conditions will Russia be able to give up or compromise with and say, I won't take that, to have this done? I think that for Zelensky to pull any of this here, they have to find an off-ramp for him where he can get out, give up his presidency, retire in Miami without the Azov battalion and all the Nazis and the banderites inside his government killing him. And they can pick somebody else. But this might be a greater pause for several years before they start up again. We've heard stuff in the grapevine before too as well. I think Colonel Wilkinson said on Andrew Napolitano that Russia is probably having talks with the Poles and say, hey, man, historically, this part of Ukraine has always been yours. Maybe you can get this back. We're not going to allow a Nazi government to live on our borders, but we won't take Kiev. We'll go as far as taking the Donbass, the ethnic-speaking Russian towns, and maybe you can absolve the rest of Ukraine. But that government is not going to exist, is what they're saying. So, I mean, finding a compromise there, because this is one of the first times when Lavrov said, well, whatever government's going to be there after Zelensky is going to be important. And he's like, wait a second, what do you mean Zelensky has to leave? That's not part of the conditions. Whereas if a lot of the talks were like, hey, man, understanding that Russia will not allow that government to exist, that's constantly taking money from NATO, that is constantly poking at the bear, right? Antagonizing Russia, killing ethnic-speaking Russians, is going to be able to get these long-range missiles sent to them by the West. We're not going to let that government happen. But if they tried to take that government, Russia has also acknowledged the fact that they don't want to be dealing with is going to be an assassination attempt on the mayors and the governors in those towns every single term, because those people will never settle for a Russian government controlling them too as well. So it is a quagmire of sorts. When you look at that list, you say, okay, what do you think that the Russians would give up and compromise and say, okay, we won't take this, we won't take that. These are the conditions we laid out. Have elections, let Zelensky go retire in Miami, pick another puppet, give us, these other areas, and we'll go from there. And we'll let you go and get your minerals and do whatever you want, rebuild Kiev with BlackRock, but you make sure that you have no weapons, no long-range weapons inside that country anymore, and none of this craziness ever starts up again. What you did in 2014, when you took over the government, it was a proxy government. We know that the West was involved. We have the Victoria Nuland, Jeffrey Pyatt phone leaks, handing out cookies on the Maidan. You have McCain and Lindsey Graham and Senator Murphy from Connecticut, the Democrat there, jostling, poking, stirring up. So, I mean, all these conditions have to be met. It's what will Russia be willing to compromise on when you look at that list? That's the question.
So, fam, I just want to clarify for you all that they're just the specifics of the two options, because Russia gave them two options in this document, right? And one of them is for Ukraine to start withdrawing its troops from the territories that we named that joined Russia and getting them away from the Russian borders within a certain distance. And then this would have to be done within 30 days. That's when I mentioned. The other one is being looked on as a package option. And it would ban any Ukrainian troop movements except for the withdrawal of forces, obviously, and the cessation of the Ukrainian mobilization campaign and Western military aid to Kiev. So they're even doing this. Like, they're saying you can do this or you can do this. And then if they do the second option, they would need to establish some sort of bilateral monitoring of sorts, a center, and then release each other's citizens held by the side, kind of like Israel and Hamas are doing. And then that's when Ukraine would have to lift martial law, or when martial law is lifted, then they would have to have the elections. So again, this is like two options that they have, both of them not exactly good for Ukraine. But I mean, that is war, right? This is they're the victor. They have the upper hand. They're the victors. They're militarily, they could continue going and they would take Odessa. They would continue moving forward. And I think, it is worth examining, like, is that something that Europe is willing to risk? I mean, I think what Matt said is true. I think that there's a lot of theatrics here. Like, Zelensky and I think the EU are actually acting like they're putting up a fight, but in reality, they couldn't actually go toe-to-toe with Russia. It would honestly be very difficult, because there is now that treaty with North Korea, which does involve North Korea like getting militarily involved. And they already are. So now you're talking about a greater war. And so, of course, they have to pretend to put up a fight. But the reality is very clear. So I do think that this proposal is actually very realistic. I just think they're going to make a fuss of it still.
Can I say this much? I think the Ukrainians in the West know that one of the reasons they give themselves a little time and they continue with their actions is the fact that they know that Russia does not want to take Kiev, but left with no choice, what are you going to do? And I think that for them, for the Russian Federation and Vladimir Putin to sell this plan to its own citizens, they have to have that government in Kiev change. They might not have to take Kiev, but they definitely need Zelensky gone and elections. So even if it's another puppet that gets into place that just replaces Zelensky, it's at least sold that the government has changed on their border. And I think their own citizens would be happy with that as well, fam. I think that's a big factor in what's going on when it comes to that situation. But at the end of the day, Zelensky has to go for there to be any movement moving forward. And I think Lavrov has stated that plain and simple.
Yeah. And again, I guess we'll have to wait till the end of June.
That's ridiculous. So what's going to happen until now and then? 18 more days of killing, 5,000 troops a week, according to Donald Trump's numbers. That's 12,500 dead souls by the time they get back to the table. That's pretty sad, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But maybe the 2-day ceasefire can grow, and maybe the I don't know. I just would listen. I hope to God that they go 2-day ceasefire. They're getting progress. Let's extend the ceasefire another 7 days. They do that. Something like that happens, fam. I hope that Mark Sloboda and myself are wrong, because I said a long time ago they were looking for the off-ramp, and when they didn't find that off-ramp, I'm like, wait, they don't want this off-ramp. They want this a never-ending fucking situation over here. But I mean, it's so different because the Russians have proved that they will beat your sanctions. They will beat your military. I mean, they don't want to fight NATO, but they would beat NATO out there. They know they got and they got China now behind them. They got wind in their sails. So they don't want this, but they understand that they can defeat this. It's not like Afghanistan with the Mujahideen. And that's why those Javelin missiles that Donald Trump, I gave you javelins, he gave you sheets. They have a lot of meaning. Those are like hand to air, going like the Mujahideen using the stingers, which changed the war. There was a lot of symbolism when Donald Trump gave that up and continued to give that regime weapons. And I hate when he says, this isn't my war. It wasn't my war. It would never happens. It's your war now, pal. You said you would end it in 24 hours. And technically, if he went to Zelensky, which for some reason he can't do this, whether it be his masters in the United States or his masters in the globalist community that say, no, you can't cut off the spigot to Zelensky. You're not going to do it. You're not allowed to. And he hasn't been able to do it because that's what a lot of people thought he would do, fam, is cut off the spigot. You're not getting any more weapons. That would appease Lavrov and Putin. They settle on the territories, and they're back to doing business, baby. That's what he wanted, but he can't do it.
Fam, the last thing I want to say on this before we move on is to clarify that they did agree on the specific ceasefires in certain areas in order to do the exchange of the bodies, the 6,000 bodies of Ukrainian soldiers, and that's going to go on next week. It's going to be done by next week, and that's 6,000 soldiers will be handed to Kiev. So for me, this says, like I've been saying, I do think there is an economic element here from the U.S. There is clearly a push from the U.S. It's very interesting. Like I said, this is happening also via Turkey, who is also engaging in some sort of deal with Syria. The U.S. is going to recognize Syria's government fully. They're going to work with them. It's not surprising. We've worked with terrorists many times, but it's all interesting, the timing out of all of this. So we'll see what happens.
Can I say one last thing about this? Because
no, you're not allowed to.
Pasi brought up the part about the timeline and the tragedy of so many more people having to unnecessarily get killed. The urgency isn't there. And the reason the urgency isn't there, that there's a cover that Trump and basically the entire EU has. But let's from Trump's vantage point in our mainstream media and their basically responsibility in this, and the fact that there is no pushback to this current administration in this regard, it's because of the environment that has been created when Trump came into office, which is that we don't have an anti-war voice in this country. We don't have a left pushing back. They're mad about the wrong things. And Trump knows this. He's got full protection from our establishment media not to go after him for these things. And this is why you can stall these things out for so long. They're going to look for all these other things. And this part's important, because if we do a better job, and we're doing everything we can, but we need more people to speak out against why this is morally wrong. Not just Ukraine. We have the Israel, obviously Gaza, Israel. These are the things that can stall out over and over because there's not a voice stepping up to say this is wrong. Get this guy for playing dumb. Get this guy for stalling out. Get the entire NATO project, the entire greater Israel project. We don't have that urgency because there's that protection. So we need more people standing up against this and to stop getting mad for all the wrong reasons. This is, if anything, this type of crap is what to be mad about, and to be pushing this every single day to end this stuff, end this Ukraine proxy war, end this illegal occupation of Gaza and this greater Israel project. Those are the messages we have to continue to be loud and shout every single day.
There's a segment of the latte liberals and their media that is, even if there's a peace deal reached and we see this come to the end, at least calm down for a while. I'm still with Fiorella that I believe that the West will always try to balkanize and regime change Russia until they get what they want. They're never going to stop. If they pause now for a while, it's just simply a pause. They'll be back again. That's just the way the military and the foreign policy apparatus act. Especially, it's good for our business, the military-industrial complex. But if they do that, there is that section of the latte liberal media that will say that Donald Trump has capitulated and kneeled down to Vladimir Putin. They've made that completely clear that they're going to keep Russiagate 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, Forever.0 going. So that really does suck. And if we do get some type of relief there, Azalut, like I said, between now and the 20th, that on average, according to Donald Trump's numbers, are 5,000 people a week dying. Unnecessary. That's 12,500 people dead until they get to the table. If we can see that number lessen and eventually go away because they can end it, that's great. But guess what? We have to pivot to where a lot of the money and the action's going no matter what, and that's Gaza. In Gaza, stuff is still going on, but not just Gaza, the West Bank. And at the end of the day, I think when it happens to be, when we were talking about the situation happening in Gaza, and then we saw what was going on in the West Bank, and Fia's got to do some reporting, the Greater Israel Project is on. Like the Great Reset is on, the Greater Israel Project is on. It's time to completely ethnically cleanse Gaza and start taking land in the West Bank. Well, it was reported the other day by antiwar.com is that, and this is like 2 days ago, Israel approves the biggest West Bank settlement expansion in over 30 years. Smotrich and Katz said that approving the 22 settlements. Now, Matt, remember when you brought to your show the settlers, we talked about it. We've been paying attention to it. We saw what's going on in the West Bank. They were still eyeing Gaza at the same time as they couldn't get enough land. It's their land. We got the donkeys. What's his name? Sarah Huckabee Sanders in Arkansas, making it a law in Arkansas that you have to refer to the West Bank and Gaza as Judea and Samaria, right? Like this is the craziness that's going on. Seeing some people on the interwebs talking about that United States is distancing itself from Israel. Like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's still backing them behind. If it was really distancing themselves, they'd be talking about what Thomas Massey's doing, fam, and cutting off the aid. So for any grifters out there spreading this word, along with the mainstream media news, that Donald Trump is at war with Israel, you're smoking the wrong type of grass. Here's what the money from Marion Adelson gave him. Israel has approved the establishment of 22 Jewish settlements in the Israel-occupied West Bank as it continues its policy of the de facto annexation of the Palestinian territory. Peace Now, an Israeli settlement watchdog, said the approval marks the biggest expansion of the settlements in the West Bank in more than 30 years since the Oslo Accords were signed in 1993. Boy, fam, I wish Donald Trump was pissed at me. The Israeli government no longer pretends otherwise. The annexation of the occupied territories and the expansion of settlements is the central goal, Peace Now said in a statement, fam. They further said today, and it was, I forgot his name. I'll go to it really quickly. Let me throw it in there. But you got something for the Washington Post, fam. What is that all about? But I don't know about you, but it's going on. The Greater Israel project's going on. They're as close in Syria, right, to the capital than they've ever been. They're bombing southern Lebanon. This is a controlled starvation of Gaza right now. Controlled starvation of Gaza. Operation Gideon's Chariot is in full effect. It's not stopping. This is incredible. It's happening in front of our face. So even if something does break and we end the killing in Ukraine, Russia, this right here is going to be a stain on humans for allowing this to happen for a long time. Fam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this was always part of the Trump administration. This is why I've been
always
saying it like on end, right? This administration is the most Zionist administration we've had. So of course this isn't this isn't over. In fact, it's just getting started. The ceasefires that were presented were a precursor to what's going to happen. It's all about controlling Gaza. It's all about pretty much ethnically cleansing them or pushing them onto somebody else, mainly Egypt and Jordan and the surrounding areas. And so what we're seeing now is just this coming into fruition. And when I went to the West Bank, their worry was that they were next. And they knew that that was the reality because of Israel's constant expansion into the land. And like I said, you can see the difference between the Israeli buildings that are, like Jared Kushner style, Trump style, high rise, luxury type of buildings, and then the Palestinian style, which is just a completely different. It's beautiful in its own way, but it's different. And the two worlds completely just under very different set of moral codes. And all of that, all of the nature, all of the olive trees, all of the farmers have been constantly harassed by Israel on end, and living in this apartheid type of state where you can't move freely unless you have a stamp from Israel that says you can go through here. Otherwise, if you're going to go to work, it might take you 3 hours because you have to go a different route because they purposely close the roads to Palestinians. And this is just the reality of the West Bank. And now what's going to happen is that Israel's going to do to them what they did to Gaza. And because we've allowed it to happen with pretty much just being distracted by so much that's happening, being distracted by a lot of BS like international law coming to save us, or really not holding those accountable, right? As we talked about last week, regarding Russia and China's role in what they could be doing potentially as well. This is just a reality that will happen, what you pointed out in the article. Now, I want to compare that to as soon as Israel has been unleashing massive attacks on refugee camps, on hospitals, killing children, women as usual to the nth degree, we've been seeing a lot of anti-Semitism being promoted in the media. And recently there was a attack by a Colorado man, and I'm gonna, Jayme, you can't show that Washington Post one because it's not allowing you.
Yeah, you got to go to archive.com and see if you can pull it off there, and that's sometimes it's hard.
Yeah, it's not going to do it. So I got another one from Sky News, so you can show that one. I just posted it in the folder. So I want to show this. I want to talk about this for a second because I think
We got it, Jayme?
it is very interesting that this is all happening now. So this man was charged, right? His name is Mohammed Soliman, and he's from El Paso County, Colorado. And he was charged with a hate crime after a petrol bomb and flamethrower attack that he did at a rally for Israeli hostages. And so the FBI quickly got in on this, and they said that this was a targeted act of terrorism. And they named him, the suspect, as Mohammed. Now, he, 4 women and 4 men between 52 and 88 were reportedly injured and taken to the hospital by this man who shouted "Free Palestine," according to officers. So we had the guy who killed 2 Israeli embassy workers who, were Zionists and whatever. He killed them. And then, all of these, there's anti-Semitism, I don't feel safe. All of this was ramping up during the times when Israel was ramping up their attacks on these refugees. And when we saw, this little girl being burned alive, and we've been seeing these images worsen and worsen. And now you mentioned the incoming incursion on the West Bank, and also, of course, what's been happening in Gaza and hasn't stopped. And now we're seeing this. And I want to show a picture because the response from these people has been almost like that video where all of the media said the same exact thing. It has been on cue. And this is why you have conspiracy theorists. This is why people don't trust anything the government says, because this is just too ridiculous. So I want to show this, Jayme. Let's see if I can pull it up. 1 second. Let me see if I can actually get it from my Telegram. It is an image of literally an image of it's you'll see all of the tweets that have just were made literally with the same type of message. So I think it's this one. I hope it's the right one. Yeah. So you can see all of these tweets that
Make them
happen.
big, Jayme, so we can see them
Well,
because we can't see
It's
them.
kind of hard because it's a
Yeah,
lot of them.
You can make them big and we can scroll through them a little bit.
So, well, it's just a picture. So, so they say, you know, Marco Rubio says we're united in prayer for the victims of targeted terrorist attacks in the afternoon in Boulder. I'm horrified. Blah blah blah. I'm horrified. We're united in prayer. I'm closely monitoring the situation in Boulder. You know, I am heartbroken watching the footage of horrific attack in Boulder. And it's just I'm horrified, I'm heartbroken, all of these things that are happening, right? It's insane. I don't trust this. It's just or either it's a false flag or people are just losing their mind over this. And I honestly, this seems more plausible to me to just not being just some random guy, because as far as I know, there hasn't been really any ties. But I mean, I don't really see how much Israel has to gain from all of this, right? I don't really see, like, this is too small. This is very minimal. It does seem just somebody, like, you know, doing something small, but that doesn't mean it couldn't have been like somebody that, you know, was instigated by an Israeli. That doesn't mean there's no involvement. But I find it odd that simultaneously as Israel is attacking, increasing their attacks, then we see this endlessly all over the media.
And by the way, here's a quick clip of Rubio just a couple days ago responding to the terrorist attacks. There was one last week. And like I said, when I had the show with Matt last week and we were talking about it, I was like, Matt, man, it is scary watching Fox and Friends, how the language just becomes us versus them. Right. You know, it just pits people against each other. It reminded me of after 9/11, where it was just all Arabs and Muslims are now the enemy. They hate us, fam. They hate us for our freedoms. Here's Rubio, because, you know, it'll be a double-edged sword, too, as well. Not only will we subject people from coming here, manufacture consent for more bombing, peace through strength. Right. Let's kill people in Yemen. Now let's, you know, we're still all worried about what could happen in Iran. But here's Rubio. Encouraging more on our civil liberties as these things take place. They use this disaster capitalism advantage of what's going on, whether it's a false flag or something happened naturally. They're going to exploit the situation.
Under President Trump, the United States will stand with the Jewish people.
Why is it stopping?
Maybe it needs to load.
Under President Trump, the United States will stand with the Jewish people. We have implemented a vigorous new visa policy.
Oh, maybe it's just a bad video.
God dang. I don't know why it's just stopping, but
that will prevent foreign nationals from coming to the United States to foment hatred against our Jewish community. We are holding international organizations and nations accountable for rhetoric against Israel that resurfaces in the manifesto of monsters like Iran and Sarah's killer. But we do see an eventual light at the end of this long tunnel of suffering. One can imagine a Middle East in which the Abraham Accords eventually reign. So thank you for the opportunity to address you.
They're literally telling you what they're going to do when it comes to Israel. You know, when it comes to other issues, Russia, Ukraine, whatever, it's very like, you're like, okay, what do they mean? What's going on? When it comes to Israel, it's pretty clear, I think, to everybody where they stand and where they're going and what they're going to do. I don't understand how people say it's so complicated. How is it complicated? They're telling you they want the Abraham Accords. They stand with Israel. They're going to continue funding Israel. How is there any sort of fight between the Trump administration and Israel and Netanyahu? I don't see that.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I think we should let Matt jump in there and talk about Matt. This is the most Zionist administration of all times. Your thoughts, man? Because there's no media out there, no mainstream media, and part of the MAGA media, which is nauseating because they kind of talk. There's a section of the MAGA media that will talk out against Israel, but they'll still capitulate to supporting Donald Trump no matter what. We don't support Zionism. We just support the most Zionist presidency of all time. Your thoughts?
So we talk about a war. The mainstream media likes to present this war in Gaza, this war between the Palestinians and Israel, this war between Hamas and whatever Israel is the greatest democracy in the Middle East. There clearly is no war going on there. That's an illegal occupation. It's a genocide. It's a purposeful starvation of 2.2 million people we're seeing in real time. There is a war going on, though. The real war going on is between the people in power, controlling narratives, controlling everything, and the people, us, in the streets, speaking about this, trying to help these people in Gaza, trying to be on the side of humanity. The war is on free speech. The war is on humanity itself. And so we know every single play they do is an attack on us, therefore an attack on the people they're murdering in real time. Like I said, they're murdering them in real time. They're starving them all out in real time. We see it. This is every single minute, every single day. So what we need to do is two things, because we've been reporting on this the whole time. Obviously, none of this is new for us, but it keeps happening. They keep doubling down. We have this new arrangement of, again, this is censorship. This is making examples of people saying, if you speak up, we are going to destroy you, and we're going to destroy this movement altogether, because we're going to just this new deal with Palantir, Alex Karp, the CEO. This is a company. The entire design is to throw us all onto one system where they can monitor everything, and they're going to go after the loudest voices first and make examples of them. We're the ones in this war on behalf of the people that cannot defend themselves. So when these little incidences happen, the first thing we need to do is assume the worst. If they can prove, if we look into these things and we can prove that it was an isolated incident, it was an actual situation where somebody, a lone person committed a crime like this. Okay, but I'm going to assume every single one of these are controlled op. These are all false flags, every single one of them, until proven otherwise. That's how I'm going to look at it, because we've been right every time. It's up to them to prove that it's not a false flag at this point. The other thing we need to do is we need to align with people that get this issue right, regardless of their past, their history, anything else they've done that we've disagreed with. We need to align with them right now. I'm just off the top of my head, I'm talking about people like Greta Thunberg, who's now on the right side of things. We need to align with her. She's going back into the battlefield. They already tried to kill her. She was on a aid mission. They tried to sink her ship. She's going back in right now into the lion's den, into Gaza. We have to be on her side. We got to be on the side of other people that maybe we weren't aligned on other things. People like Sean King. He's been absolutely fantastic on sharing the real stuff coming from the ground and taking the beating, losing all of his accounts, but fighting back. He's on Telegram right now. Getting the messages out immediately. As soon as he has it, he gets it out, and we can see the real news breaking. That's what we can do. Align with people that are on the right side of this. This war is going to get harder and harder as these laws get passed, as they implement this AI, as they implement this technology. Because yes, you guys are right. This is the most Zionist administration we've ever had, and they're doubling down on the technology they have access to that no previous administration has had this type of access. So this war is going to go into the next level, and we need to be ready at every turn and not be caught up on, I wonder if this is fake or not. No, we're going to assume the worst until proven otherwise. That's how we're going to conduct ourselves, because there's no time to waste. We don't have time to let's let it marinate for a bit. That DC Capitol murder. That could have been a hate crime. No, We're going to assume the worst. It was a psyop. It was a false flag until proven otherwise. We don't have any time to waste. We have to continue getting the message out and supporting the people that are on the right side of history at all costs.
Well, let me say this much. I will align with their message, but I am not going to capitulate and allow Greta or Talcum X to take a lead on anything. They can align with us as far as the message is concerned. And I think that's the important thing, is that we don't follow the person, we just follow the message. So if they're on message, and like you said, like Dr. Shiva, who you had on the other day and had a crazy explosive show with, we understand where that guy's at, but he still has the best message out there. We need to end the occupation. We need to end the occupation of AIPAC and the Israeli lobbyists of our government. They own our government. That's the occupation we need to end. It's funny to me when people still are blaming China for controlling our government, when there's like zero proof of that. Yet you can see that the Israeli government is open about owning our government and whatnot. But also, too, as well, you could see that they're open about what they want to do. The Israeli defense minister, we will build a Jewish Israeli state in the West Bank. Comments from Katz after the Israeli government approved 22 more illegal West Bank settlements. This is the day after he comes forth and says it. They're telling you what they're doing. Israeli defense minister Israel Katz declared on Friday that Israel will build a Jewish Israeli state in the Israeli occupied West Bank. Katz comments came a day after the Israeli government approved 22 additional West Bank settlements. I mean, this is going on right in front of our face. I hear you, Matt. I'm kind of cautious of some of those people, but if they got the right message, let's move forward with the right message. We don't need any saviors anymore. We can move forward with the message ourselves. But I just wanted to get your final thoughts as we're wrapping up the show, guys. With that being said, I'm at a point now where I'm just hoping that the Palestinian people could survive. Where do they go? If they stay there, they're going to die. Where do they go? What's going to happen if the Palestinian people flee? Maybe, I don't know if you got anything else to say, but maybe we can make that our final thoughts and wrap the show up in 90 minutes today. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't think I don't think a lot of people are going to go, because this is again, this is an understanding on armed resistance. It's an understanding on basically how they view this fight as something extremely ideological and much bigger than themselves. There's not this it is a martyrdom of sorts, and it's not just in Palestine, it's in the entire region, and that where the axis of resistance occupies. And I don't think Israel is going to be successful in being able to eradicate that sentiment, even if they eradicate all of Gaza. Even though they've put Gaza into rubble, this will reemerge at a later time. This isn't going to go away. And, you know, I think Egypt and Jordan will be forced to take whoever of the people decide that they want to survive and go with their families. I think that's probably what's going to happen. But I think in general, there is like something very ideological and very almost, I would say, spiritual happening with that. And it's going to be the battle between survival, pragmatism, right, and the spirituality of no, we have a right to be here. This is our land. We're going to stay. We're going to fight until we can. And if we die doing it, that's more worthy for us than just bowing down to Israel. And I think it's hard for us to understand that in the West, but that is actually a overwhelming sentiment, believe it or not just in Gaza, but in all of Palestine and Lebanon and even in parts of Syria right now. It's just very minimal at the moment. So yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. And I think we need to maybe next time dive a little bit deeper into the Palantir stuff, because that's also Israeli. And also, I just want to highlight, I pointed that out in this article I did a few months ago about Elon Musk's role. Interesting how Elon Musk left right after there was that introduction, that merging of the Silicon Valley technocrats and the connections to Palantir and others. And now you see what Trump's done. And again, this is all right in line to not just like the expansion of Greater Israel as an asset, but also the intelligence apparatus expanding as a whole and going, of course, forth into a very fascistic territory, using, of course, the anti-Semitic trope to continue to increase surveillance on the American people. And it's just happening at a much quicker pace. And while everybody is distracted with the geopolitics aspect, very few are paying attention to the surveillance state and what's happening with that.
Fam, I'm ready to hand off and give the last word to Matt Weinglass if you ain't got anything to say, because I spoke a lot and I think I got everything out. And I think this was a great show. No, I mean, there's a lot to think about, a lot going on. I think we hit the two most important stories right now that are going on. I do think that the third most important story, and if not, it might be the top of the one, we should dive in maybe Friday a little bit more to what's going on with AI and Palantir. I'd like to dive in a little bit more with Catherine Austin Fitz said the other day about this being an interdimension attack from other evil entities coming into this dimension, fam. She said it. We know about CERN. We know about the Hydra Collider. But are you ready to hand it off to Matt for the last word, fam, on the show?
Take it away, Matt.
Well, I'm going to let you know, fam, and, you know, Fee, when you said the thing about the Palestinians not maybe wanting to leave even if they had a chance to, that struck a chord with me. That's the part we don't see. We're trying to get the numbers right. We're trying to, we know the deaths have been misreported. We know it's just the idea that there's 2.2 million people there and however many are left are literally starving to death. And we think about, well, how many of them can be taken out and put somewhere else? And this whole, oh, we're going to send them to here, send them there. But the reality is the human experience. We forget that the human experience is that if you are still alive right now in Palestine, if you are alive in Gaza, and you're starving to death, you also have tens and tens and tens of friends and family that aren't there. And as far as you're concerned, you feel like you missed the boat when they were taken away, and you want to be reunited with your family and your dead babies, your dead kids and your dead brothers and sisters and parents. And so I do think there is a sense of nobility and staying the course and staying there. And being on the right side of what's right, stay put for the ones that aren't here anymore. And this is where I think we're headed. To answer that question, Craig, I think we are headed in a direction where the genocide will be completed. If whoever's left isn't starved to death, they're not going to want to go. They're going to want to see it out to the end. And this is what the stories books are going to have to tell. This story, this most tragic story of our lifetimes by far that we lived through and allowed this to happen. But yeah, I don't think it's going to end well. But for them, in their experience, they will have a chance to reunite with those that were taken away. And a lot of them probably wish that they were taken away with them, because to be able to live right now, barely alive right now, it's beyond any of our comprehension. So we got to take a moment to remember that this is not just a numbers issue. This is a human issue, and we have to do our best to empathize with that. Even if we're incapable of it, we have to realize how incapable we are, and that's why we're going to continue to do what we're doing for them.
His show is on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The Homeless Left. Go check him out. He's got a lot of stuff going viral lately. He is Matt Weinglass, and I'll be with him on Thursday's show. We got Jay on with him tomorrow. What's Jay's last name?
Jay Scott.
Jay Scott. He'll be on with him. Fam is writing up her Substack. Get on over there. Go check it out. She's got a lot of stuff coming out soon, hopefully. She did a great video of Vanessa not too long ago. And, of course, I have my Wednesday show on WBAI. Got a new song hitting this month, new intro, new hip-hop song coming out. Go in, get ready to call in on the Wednesday show. Me and Fam will be back on a Friday for the TruthWire, and we'll probably have a guest on there. We're talking to a few people, and there's a lot of things to cover. That's it for today. I am your host, Craig Pasta-Jardula, from Matt Weinglass, Fiorella Isabel, Jayme CheeseSlice on the ones and twos. Jayme, you got any messages you want to put out, or are you just going to put it out during the intro? All right, that's it for today. We love you guys. We'll see you. That was the Truth Wire. It's over. Truth out.